You're listening to The Big Lift, the podcast of WebTrends Optimize, the CRO solution that enables marketers and developers to maximize the ROI on their digital properties. WebTrends Optimize is a powerful, feature-rich and easy-to-use solution, all delivered within a fixed-price contract with no additional cost for increased functionality ever. During these podcasts, we meet some of the key influencers within the marketing and conversion world to understand their roles and examine their challenges. As the future of marketing is under constant change, and never more so than it is today, I talked to Ben Parr, president and co-founder of Octane AI, and author of Captivology, the science of capturing people's attention. We discuss the evolving challenges that marketers face in the not too distant future, and how you need to think differently to stay ahead. Welcome, Ben. Interesting CV you've got on LinkedIn. It always intrigues me as to where people came from. You were an intern at the House of Representatives. So how did you get to where you are today from those, well, I won't say humble beginnings. I think they were probably pretty exciting beginnings, I should think.
You might actually be the first host to actually ask me about that. It was when I was in college, Northwestern in Chicago. I thought I wanted to go into politics, and so I was able to get myself an internship with the House of Representatives after my freshman year. And, I'd done some of the political courses and aced those and all that fun stuff. And yeah, it was definitely exciting. There was definitely a lot happening, but there's like a couple things you learn as soon as you're in the Congress walking around. One, the congressman or congresswoman, 3/4 of the time, they're in the office building doing phone calls to donors. And it's like, holy crap, look at how much time they're spending on that. And the reality dawned on me, which was like, I would be very beholden to other interests if I started out down the political path, because you don't make that much money. And then even if when you go into Congress, then you're beholden to like other people's money versus like I decided then, I would like make my own money and I would like build my own thing so that if I ever did run into politics and run for politics, I would have my own money. I wouldn't be able to be bought. So it was a super exciting time. I remember like everyone gathering for like nerding out over free trade agreements, crazy things like that.
That sounds probably a lot more exciting than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was just going to be sitting in the office, penning speeches for everybody and trying to get it all right and being shouted at and things like that. Along the way, you wrote a book called Captivology, and I think the subtitle of it is The Science of Capturing People's Attention. Now, I haven't read all of the book, but I'm assuming that it was aimed at investors deliberately. Perhaps you wanted to get some investment for your own business along the way. Was that true?
It's actually the opposite. I was an investor at the time. So I had started a small venture fund, was actually investing into startups on behalf of celebrities and others with a small fund. And when I was doing that, I got asked all the time for help in press, marketing, customer user acquisition, virality by these founders. Because, I was known for that from my Mashable time. It really quickly became clear that everyone had the same problem, which was attention and how do you capture attention. And, in the past, I got a lot of book offers because of my time at Mashable, but it was the first time I actually found a topic. I was like, this is super fascinating. I really want to do the deep dive in it. Let's go like really explore this, because no one had really done that. There's so much amazing research and attention, but no one had brought it together into something that was actionable by the general public. And that kind of like started the journey. I got very lucky with like an amazing agent and an amazing like team and an amazing publisher to go and write that book.
Do you think that attention spans are getting shorter? And can you hazard a guess at why that might be?
Well, I write about in the book how the amount of information that is being presented to us as human beings has grown exponentially, and yet the amount of attention, the amount of time, the amount of the brain capacity, the like our eyes, they're the same as they were, maybe 20, 30,000 years ago with maybe some minor differences. And we were not designed to go from like a megabyte to a gigabyte to a terabytes worth of information being thrown at us every single day. And that number's only increasing as there's more content and more options. And it's definitely caused us to split our attention more and to take on new habits that aren't fundamentally human. Will we adapt? Probably, but also we're not designed to adapt or evolve this rapidly to changes that we ourselves are introducing. So there's a lot of factors to what's happening to attention, but a lot of it really comes down to a change in the way, in the amount of information that we have to process.
Yeah, I think there's a fictitious measure of attention span. I think is the attention span of a goldfish, which has always been used over the years that I've actually been thinking about attention spans. And I think we've actually got a shorter attention span now than the current goldfish level has, if that's a measure.
There's an interesting. So I write about in the book about the three stages of attention and how attention isn't an on-off switch, but it's a progression over time. So immediate attention is like our automatic attention that happens like light switch on off. You hear a gunshot, you smell something. You could consider that the goldfish attention if you want, but that's like the quick reaction. Then the short attention that's like our ability to focus on a TikTok video or a movie or like a one-time thing. And then there's long attention, which is not as much written about, but is part of my model, which is about long term interest and long term memory. And kind of your goal as somebody who's trying to capture attention is to get their like immediate attention, build up some interest in the short attention, and convert yourself into long term memory because long term memory and attention are intrinsically linked. And so you want to have whatever your idea is, whatever your company is, be committed to long term memory. And so there's a bunch of little things around that. It's less that we are goldfish and more that there's just so many things competing that only a couple things and only the same amount of things can end up at long-term memory because we that the brain hasn't changed all that much in the last 100 years.
That's quite an interesting analogy, actually, because as we talk about the main topic, which is about the third-party cookies and their demise over the next few years, one of the things that you could see is that the use of retargeting is a way of being able to keep the memory fresh with regard to a product that you viewed, in the hope that the visitor to your website will revisit and make that purchase. So it's quite interesting that attention, or that instant attention, but being hit numerous times along your journey, is or has been a way of being able to keep people's attention. But anyway, let's move on a little bit. The use of third-party cookies and retargeting ads have been the mainstream of many companies' digital strategies for acquiring new customers. But soon all that's going to go away with the demise of the third-party cookie. Do you think that that's going to cause marketers big issues?
The entire ad and like marketing world and e-com especially, but just all across the board, has been entirely built around third-party cookies, right? That's just how we were able to monetize media websites, how e-commerce brands were able to grow, how Facebook became one of the most valuable companies in the world, which is just like using data that was going from multiple like websites and tracking and using that to serve, more precise retargeting ads. But that also came at the cost of privacy. And we've seen the kinds of issues that happen when over the last couple of years. And so the result has been, a fundamental pushback. And interestingly, it didn't start with governments. It started with Apple with iOS 14.5, giving users the ability to opt out of tracking, which, at a fundamental level is great for users. But, businesses were definitely not prepared and couldn't really prepare for such a fundamental change so quickly to their business models. And that's going to be changing even further as, Chrome is going to no longer support third-party cookies, the most popular browser in the world, and they won't support that in the beginning of 2023. And suddenly all retargeting ads, as the way they currently work, won't even work anymore. Like Google's going to go to a new cohort-based system. Facebook is trying to pivot to the metaverse. The result is that for brands that, haven't collected their own data, haven't, built up other channels outside of advertising, it's going to get really rough. It's already really rough for a lot of the brands that I speak with every day. The cost of ads has really gone up. That's really fundamental to their businesses.
But do you think Google is shooting themselves in their own feet? Because obviously they've got a massive ad stream themselves. So they're going to have to find a way to reinvigorate some sort of way of cashing in on whatever's new.
So, two things. One, if Google didn't do it, it was going to be done for them. And so it's kind of like you have two choices. You can either just like try to hold out as long as you can, or you can make a change that is going to be a little bit better for you than if a government made the change for you. And Google clearly chose the latter, and frankly, probably makes sense. The second one is Google has enough data to be okay because Google has all of this other data from their own first party cookies and from historical data, which is why they're going to be rolling out what they call Flock. It's like a cohort system of being able to like target ads.
Yeah.
My point here being Google will be okay and super large retailers will be okay, like an Amazon and others, because they have enough data of their own. But smaller brands and startups and, like pure D2C brands are in a bigger and a rougher position because they don't have the same level of data. And so the solution is to collect your own zero party data and to do it ASAP because you need to build up that data layer, not just to like serve like, better emails and personalize more, but to protect yourself as these changes continue to go. The more data you have, the more things you can do when it comes to personalization, AI, retargeting, and just fundamentally not relying on borrowing data from providers like Google and Facebook who either change the rules or have the rules changed on them.
But one of the things is that, as a marketer, we kind of know that data has a lifespan, and that lifespan varies with whatever data you're trying to collect. And it could be maybe a year, could be 6 months, could be 3 months, could be even a few weeks, depending on what data you're collecting. But surely the data that's being collected by, say, Google at that point in time, or Apple, or whoever it was that was the big boys, surely that data is getting staler by the day. And therefore, they will need to be able to find other ways of being able to collect data themselves. And obviously we know first party data and zero party data is the way forward. But I'm just trying to be able to think of Google's trying to be able to sit there and say, actually, we're going to lead the way and we're going to perhaps use this federated learning of cohorts as a way forward. But I can't help thinking that Google are impacting their own revenue stream, and therefore they will be very slow to make this happen. They'll agree, yes, they want to do it and they're going to do it. But until they've worked out a way of being able to monetize whatever's down the line, I think we could be seeing probably the end of 2023, perhaps even 2024 before things happen.
I wouldn't be surprised. They've pushed it. They've pushed it back. I think. Look, we're talking about like super giant companies. So I think each of these companies has kind of like a different situation. So let's talk about Google versus Facebook. Google just might lose some third party data, but they still have the fundamental data of what you're searching for on the website because first party cookies are not going away. So they still know what you're searching for, what you're doing in Google products. So like that data doesn't get stale. And so comparatively to Facebook, they have better data in terms of like what people are exactly doing. Facebook, they have data on what you're doing on the thing, but they've relied more on the third party behavior that you've done. And they don't have this data of what you're looking for right at this moment. And so their ads are affected, I think, more. And thus, like, they are going to see a larger hit than perhaps Google. Neither necessarily want to go and do this. You're absolutely right. And like Google pushing it back to 2023 and maybe to push it back again. Yeah, that's a thing that absolutely they're like, they're going to probably drag their feet on some. But it's also, again, like a thing where it was going to be forced upon them. They're going to have to go and do it. Yeah, they're going to be impacted like on revenue. But also on the flip side for Google, most of their ads are based on what you on the Google search engine, what you search for, and something relevant based on that. Result is that's probably not going to be affected. It's their like third party network, their DoubleClick, or things like that are affected more. But that's not as huge of a part of their revenue as the ads that they serve on Google. It'll be interesting to see. For both of them, it has a fundamental impact. But how big? Not 100% sure. Google, though, just crazy amounts of data, really excellent hand at like leveraging it. It'll be interesting to see how much of a dip there is when they do actually eventually switch, because it will eventually happen. It's just a matter of timing.
Yeah, I think you're right. But one of the things that I'm concerned about, and I'm part of the older generation, is that that gives the likes of Amazon, Google, and Apple huge power because they're holding all the first party data. So do you think there'll be a backlash against that? Or do you think, marketers will try and find a way of not doing that at all? I mean, we're all currently sitting here thinking, actually, there's lots of data people are holding on us because we presume that Amazon and Google, but if it's found out that Apple, Google, and Amazon are the only holders of first-party data, and they're kind of controlling the internet, we could be down to the kind of conversations that Facebook have been having with regard to serving content that only people want to read.
Amazon recently announced, that they're going to be and they're making a bigger push on ads. And I think in part because they do actually have a lot of first-party direct data from them. Mm-hmm. The controllers look, if you control data, you're in better shape. It's as simple as that, right? Amazon has so much data on what their customers are doing on Amazon.com, and that's how they're able to serve personalized ads of which products, personalized recommendations. It's the core to everything Amazon does on the e-commerce side. The result is that they will probably be fine. I think, look, the simple is the rules are constantly changing right now. Yeah. And it makes sense why they're changing. And in the ecosystem, I cannot tell you. No one can tell you who's going to own which piece of data, right? Who's going to be the controllers of data. Apple, yeah, they have data, but also, they have basically abandoned the idea of trying to build a large-scale ad network, nor do they want to, right? Mm-hmm. They're going to go in a completely different direction, which is they make their money not from ads, but from selling hardware products. And frankly, the more that they can kind of kneecap a little bit of some of these providers like Apple, like Facebook and others, the better. At least that's what their strategy currently seems to be. So I don't know, actually, the people who control the data in the next couple of years, the name may change, and they may be even names we don't know now. The one thing I do know is that you just never want to rely on a single third party for your data or for your traffic or for your customers. It's the same reason why e-commerce brands are, moving away from Amazon. Yes, you can build a big business off Amazon, but you don't know who the customer is. They don't give you the email. You are beholden to changes that Amazon does, right? Same thing. If you were beholden to Facebook for your primary source of traffic, same kind of problem. Or if you were primarily making money from Google ads, same kind of problem. This is one of the big things I've been recommending to a lot of e-com brands is the diversification of channels and to get them on channels you own as quickly as possible, which is primarily email and SMS, because those cannot be taken away from you. You will always be able to control those. And so the most important thing probably right now is how well and quickly can you convert people from prospective traffic from whichever source to an email address or phone number so that you can continue the series, the customer journey on a channel that can't be taken away from you.
So I think you're absolutely right. I think the more data you own as a business, the better off you're going to be. But I think that there are also some kind of challenges along the way, which is that marketers are now looking at an acquisition strategy, which is potentially being seriously dented. And whilst we talk about zero and first-party cookies, that's when people are actually on your site. But actually getting those people to your site without the use of retargeting or online retargeting, whatever it might be, is going to cause challenges again, surely.
Yeah. And look, so just so everyone knows, because I think definitions are important here. First party data is the data of what you're tracking of your customers or your prospects on your site. That's things like Google Analytics. That's things like what they purchased in your Shopify store, their purchase history. Zero party data is what customers volunteer to you. That's things like they tell you what their shoe size is or what color they're looking for or what kind of skin tone they have or what allergies they have. That's a level data stronger that you can do much deeper personalization with. And that's probably that's why that term zero party data has been going around a lot recently, because it is a fundamentally better data set than the first party data set. And especially both of them are better than the third party data set.
Yep.
There's just so much change. It's hard to go and keep up. But the simple fact is if you have some piece of data, you can serve better ads, serve better emails, and spend less. Like the whole goal, I think, is to spend as little as you have to, especially retargeting, because what in the past you would do, or even currently, maybe you could do 10, 12 retargeting ads on a person before they give you an email, phone number, or they make a purchase. And that was okay because Facebook ads and ads were so cheap. Now they're not cheap. Now you can't do that. Now when it does a retargeting ad, you can't even guarantee it's a person who exactly like saw like in a customer journey, because Facebook doesn't even know.
I've got a couple of friends of mine who run small businesses. So they're not massive businesses. They're a few million turnover, but they're kind of sitting there thinking, actually, what can I do to continue the flow of people into my database, as well as I need to collect more information from them once they're on my website. And that seems to be a recurring theme with the people that I'm talking to. And when I'm having conversation with them, I talk about, well, actually, you've got to do more inbound marketing. You've got to start putting yourself out there with regard to other channels. You've got to blog more. You've got to have specialization. You've got to do all that. But I'm not sure that people are sitting in that zone at the moment. I still think that marketers are in this, you would call it rabbit in the headlights kind of thing, that they don't really know where to go. They just know things are changing.
Side note, I find it interesting to use rabbit in the headlights. We use deer in the headlights in the US, or maybe it's just different. I mean, there's just so many more deer from where I'm from small town Illinois, you know.
Yeah, I've got lots of deer and lots of rabbits too. I live in the country, so yeah, I can use either metaphor.
I'm just imagining you now, just like running, like walking around, and just like all the animals kind of come over, kind of like a Disney movie. They're kind of just like landing on you and being like, "Hey, hello, John.
This is Bambiland."
I guess that's true. Oh God, like, I mean, look, we're keeping on like going back and like we're like trying to like, you know, figure out like, yeah, the brands, the marketers are for sure. It's true deer in headlights. The change happened, you know, very quickly, and there was not any real time to react. To Google's credit, you know, they're like, there's a bunch of time. Get ready, get prepared. Here's like a timeline, and we'll push it back even once, you know. But for you know, it makes sense for Google to do that since that's their main source of revenue. For Apple, you know, it's not their main source of revenue. So making that change didn't really hurt them. It probably only helped them. So, you know, that blindsided people. Now there's like more stuff you have to go and get prepared. Like, yeah, the more like, look, there's like so many channels, right? That go beyond Facebook and Instagram and Google. There's obviously other social channels like TikTok and just a whole new class of like audio, all sorts of things. But there's also just, you're right, content, blogging, PR, pop-ups, like physical events. There's a whole class of things. And like, yeah, it's definitely more work than like, I found an ad that really works, I'm going to go spend a lot more money on it. It just, that has generally ended. You might find, you know, a diamond in the rough. You might find something that really works, but it's not guaranteed to work for all that long anymore, especially given that every single day that passes, Facebook's data in particular becomes less and less sophisticated because like they have more and more stale data, especially. So yeah, like there's definitely a whole rabbit in the headlights kind of thing, especially for those who really relied on ads. I get it. It completely blindsided a lot of brands, and there hasn't been a channel that is as easy as Facebook ads, and that's a real problem for a bunch of brands. Again, it kind of helps the larger brands who already have established bases and don't have to bring a whole bunch of new people in more than anyone. You're a newer brand, you're a mid-sized brand, you're going to have to do a little bit of extra work. And it probably really is based on content and really is based on a diversification of channels. You know, I have brands who are doing really well at things like TikTok and figuring out new formats. And that's been their saving grace.
So that's interesting because I'm what I would describe as a long-term marketer. I've been doing marketing for half of my career and I'm getting close to retirement. But one of the things that I've noticed in my time is that marketing has become much more measurable. Everything that a marketer seems to be doing now is having to deliver a return on investment. And I think these other channels are, apart from email, I would say, are more difficult to measure a return on investment, which will actually convince the bosses that they work for that they're actually spending their money in the right way. If you talk about PR years ago could be the fact of, somebody mentioned something in the newspaper. You couldn't actually track whether that was valuable or not. The same as putting a billboard outside a big supermarket or something. It's very difficult to measure that. Do you think we'll be moving back to a bit more or a bit less measurability?
That's a hard one because, yeah, we're all so used to detailed measurability. How do you go back from that?
Yeah.
And right. Look, PR and billboards and things like that are a little bit more measurable than they used to be. Like, I remember the founder of Away, Jen Rubio, explaining to me how they were able to like measure a huge increase in e-commerce sales after they launched. Each time they launched a new store, and they would actually see an increase in e-commerce sales in that region, in that area. But that's like a secondary kind of measurement, right? Versus like,
Yeah.
I can't directly measure how many people came in because of a billboard or because of something like that. But we may have to just accept that, to be super successful, you have to do some of these things that are really hard to measure. You're right. PR is really, really hard to measure, but it's not immeasurable, right? There are ways to do it, especially if you are collecting zero party data or even just asking how people found you. Like, look, something as simple as a post purchase survey can give you some insight into like where people are coming from.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's not as good as like, pure ad data, which is just like a pure number formula, which is like the kind of thing that investors really, really love and like I really, really love. But until we figure out new measurements or there's like a new channel or something like that, uh, that's probably like going to be the way. Flip side though, I do think you're going to see more social networks and channels and like a diversification of channels over time where you can gain customers. Like TikTok may actually be bigger than Instagram at this point, right? Like,
Mm.
if people spend a bunch of money on Instagram, and TikTok's just like barely starting on like the monetization point and the ad point. But for some people, they're like making real returns on that. And then there's like obviously other new channels that are getting built up all the time and niche communities. And it's crazy just like the sheer amount of places that actually exist. You just have to like, you have to learn or you have to add somebody who knows those other kinds of channels. There's just, the places where people hang out online at least is definitely changing. And
Yeah.
so the brands that figure out how to reach those people first and early are going to get the biggest impact because it always ends up being like the best ROI in the beginning.
Yeah, but it's also one of the riskiest places to be as well.
True.
If you look at TikTok a year or 2 years ago, when it was just starting out, you wouldn't be putting your marketing budget in there. You'd be kind of saying, well, I'm going to wait a little while before that. And then it kind of gains momentum very quickly. And then you're kind of always behind the curve. So there is some risk versus reward. But I would say that most marketers are becoming more risk adverse if they can't deliver an ROI that's measurable.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the question though is like, okay, if for you, like if ads are not working, then what, right? Like if Facebook ads are not working and you're not getting the same ROI, and in fact, maybe it's like you're like, what I'm seeing is like I'm still running ads, but instead of like being profitable, like pretend that you had a $50, like AOV for a
Mhm.
customer, and in the past, you'd spend $30 and you could get the customer, you'd be profitable in the first one. Any repeat purchases would be gravy. Now I'm seeing like, all right, we spend 50, it takes $70 to get a customer to spend 50. Now they're praying and hoping and really focusing on like, how do I turn them into a repeat customer? So I think that's actually probably one thing that will be emphasized more, which is like turning customers into repeat customers and the nurturing sequences that happen after, because the economics, like a little bit of change in the economics really flips like what you have to go and do. So I think short term, you're going to see a lot more focus on like that, like retention and that repeat and subscription. But long term, just like I can't imagine that ads are necessarily going to like swing back and be back the way they were. It just won't happen. So you have to like figure out where else are you going to get your traffic.
One of the questions I think is in a lot of people's minds is that I've been, as a marketer, this is not me personally, but I've been used to spending X amount of money on Google, being able to attract kind of new customers. And I've seen what you could describe as a return on investment of that. I've done some email marketing, which is showing a great return on investment. But now, where do I put my money? What percentage of my budget should I be looking at for doing things differently? And I think that's obviously dependent upon the business in which you're talking to. But I think there's some real challenges with regard to looking forward to 2022 and beyond with regard to how much marketing budget do I need? Where do I spend it? Where am I going to get the best return on my investment? Because things are changing so dramatically. So would you see that in the next 3 to 6 months, there'll be some sort of guide, whether it's you or whether it's somebody else, that's going to be able to say where you should be spending your marketing budget percentage wise based upon what type of business that you are? Because I think there's a desperate need for that in the market that I'm hearing at the moment.
Well, the first one is like there are some things that, are getting like that are super clear that you should be spending money on and doing now. And that's kind of like putting your house into order. So that's a couple things. It's like, one, maximizing your conversion rate of email address and phone number collection. And so things like a quiz, things like a conversational pop-up, like those just have higher conversion rates than, say, the old traditional pop-ups where like it just begs you for an email address, right?
Yes.
You gotta not just do the same thing that you've been doing. Like I would spend a lot more time and money purely optimizing like the conversion rates you have on your site, both from sales and from especially email and phone number collection. The second one is like really like spending more money and budget on really optimizing your email and phone number sequences if you do SMS marketing, because that's going to become only more important over time. And small improvements in your email welcome series, your post-purchase series, your campaigns can have a dramatic impact on your revenue over time. And so I would say like that's like the first things to like really spend money on. And like you also, again, collecting zero-party data, a quiz or a post-purchase survey are really critical. Being able to like learn these detailed preferences that you really need. Because look, if you're a pet brand and you suddenly now know whether somebody has a cat or a dog because of maybe a like onboarding quiz or like a like product quiz, you can actually use that data in Facebook to do a retargeting ad that's going to be much smarter. It will be able to say like referencing that you have a cat or a dog and specific type of food. Seems simple, but we've seen it. You do that, it actually vastly increases the conversion rate and of the ad and of the email sequence that follows. So suddenly, you're actually improving like your rate all the time, but you need to be collecting the data in order to do it. And so I think a lot of money needs to be spent first on like collecting more data directly, optimizing your house of like your website, your conversions, and your email, and like your SMS too, if you are using SMS. That's like the first place before even going into where am I going to go and get more traffic and customers, because, spending money on a leaky funnel is not going to work anymore.
Yeah, because that's kind of turning things on its head. It used to be traffic first, conversion second. I think my own world, it's conversion first and traffic second. And I think the world's now coming towards the conversion of visitors once they get on the site.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly it.
I must be in the right industry then. That's all I can say.
I mean, yeah, optimize. Yeah, it's optimization. Like it is really like important now before things get too crazy to like optimize these things. Email, phone number, website, get that as strong as you can so that the traffic you send converts better. That's going to save you money.
And I think zero-party data is really the creme de la creme. It's the bit that actually makes the difference. The other is just pure data. This one is actually actionable data that's going to make a difference.
Yeah.
So Ben, it's been a really interesting conversation. And I could probably talk for perhaps another hour or so, but I'd love to be able to catch up with you again, maybe in 6 months' time, and see how things are progressing and see if the world has changed as we potentially believe it might do over that time. But for now, it's been great listening to you. Thanks very much for giving up your time, and I'm sure we'll speak again soon.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and for everyone out there. This is kind of like the life of a marketer, which is just like adaptation. It's crazy, but there's also always new opportunity when things like this happen. And I think we're going to see some super interesting opportunities and some super interesting brands being built over the next couple of years because of what's been happening in the data privacy world.
Yeah, I think to quote, I think it was Herculean, a Greek philosopher, which basically said the only constant is change, and nothing more so than we are today.
How philosophical. That's a good way to end it.
Ben, thanks a lot.